I'm a guy that's 25. Lego Star Wars is my life. I like Ryan Johnson. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back with another video, and this is going to be episode 48 of the LEGO Star Wars Starkiller base MOC build series. Before we get into the build this week, I want to give a very special thanks to those of you who contributed via Super Chat on the live streams. It's always a great time, so shout out to Lego Myke, Brix Films, Jonathan Trevino, Lamborghini Waffle Sauce, Tanooki Billy, The Angel of Herb, Xavier Sorrent, Imperial Lego Productions, Jack Meyers, and Alex McBrick. It means so much to me that you guys are willing to contribute to help this build become possible, and I cannot thank you enough for that. And also, if you guys are not tuning into the live streams, I definitely urge you to do so. It is a great way for you to not only see the build early, but to also hang out, talk Star Wars with some dudes, with some boyos. It's not just with some dudes, it's with some boyos. There's levels to this. What more could you want than that? But this week was an awesome one. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a delay with, I had like a mail situation where I lost my mail key and I had to get another one, and it took forever to make that happen. So that's why this video ended up coming out a lot later than it should have. But nevertheless, we are here. I got most of the stuff done that I wanted to get done this week. The two sections that I worked on this week were the interrogation room as well as the hallway adjacent to it. I think you guys are really going to like what I did with it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. This week we're going to be working on the interrogation room where Kylo Ren tries to extract information literally from Rey's head. You don't see the floor of the room in the film, so I went into Battlefront 2 and I got a pretty good picture of the floor in this room, and you can see it's pretty complicated. It's actually an octagonal shaped room. There are 8 sides to it, so that's need to going to be preserved in the build. So that's something to consider. There's also these like lines that go through like I guess the pillars. They're next to the pillars in the room, and then there's of course this octagon in the middle of the room that's right below the little thing that Rey is attached to. So looking at this room initially, I was just kind of like, well, I'm gonna have to do some sort of weird snot pattern to preserve these lines since they're at such weird angles, and then to have like the lines and the floor of the room preserved. Like it isn't super necessary to have these small lines, but it'd be nice to have that represented in some way. What I went to first were 2 designs that I tried to work out. The first one was this snot design, and I liked it because it was smooth and snot, and the floor obviously is very smooth. So this was definitely going to be a preferable option. But the issue with it was the angles in these slopes didn't actually line up. I actually didn't even have to finish off a full ring because the fact that I already had 8 pieces right here and it only barely made like more than half a circle told me that that wasn't going to be what I needed for this. Because this is an octagon, that means I basically need 8 triangles slices to sit in the room that I'm going to be building. This has more than 8, which means that if I had the lines built in to just these, then I was going to end up with far too many of those, far too many sides in the room. So that's what told me I could pretty much go ahead and scrap that. What I ended up trying next was a plate design, because it could turn out to be the case that like your angles just don't work out with any of the slope bricks, so you have to go with the plates because the angles are slightly different on them depending on which ones you're using. This one was a little bit better because I have 8 here, and the numbers, like the sides are correct, but these gaps in here were problematic because that meant if I, tried to connect all this together and have it as one room, you'd have these ugly gaps. And I mean, you could probably try to fill it in with some tiles underneath it, but I want to avoid that if possible, right? Like you don't want to have these gaps that as the room gets even bigger, the gaps get even bigger, and it would just look weird. It wouldn't really give me the desired effect that I was looking for. So then that ended up being a scrap project. So I ended up coming up with this, and I'm super happy with it. But boy, was this super complicated and difficult to figure out. So let me tell you why I like this design. One, it has the correct number of sides in the room. You can see that there are 8 of these slices. If you'll notice, it actually gets cut off a bit here, and that was done on purpose. The reason I had this get cut off here is because I wanted you be able to see into the room from the side and be able to see a decent portion of it. If I just like had one of these small sides be what backed up to the room, that would give you a very small window to be able to look into the room. If instead I tried to, you know, maybe cut out more of the wall on this side, then the room just wouldn't be correct, because like I would have to basically, rather than having these walls come in, just have them slant all the way towards, or not even slant, but basically just come straight all the way towards the front of the room. And then you'd be left with this weird gap in here asking like, why is that there? Like there should obviously be a wall there. So that's why I decided to have the room basically right here. I still want to preserve most of the walls in the room, but I want to give us a decent window to view into the room, and I thought that this is what allowed me to do that. If you get a closer look at it, you can see there are tons of shapes built into this thing. These triangle slices are built using the 1x2x1 slopes. I think it's a 65-degree slope. And what I also did to preserve these white lines was I had these brick assemblies basically smashed between them. That wasn't something I really had to figure into the initial design. I knew that if these triangles fit together, then if I basically just pulled them further apart from the center of the circle that they would form, that would create gaps between each individual one. And I knew I could basically configure this in such a way where there was enough space to fit like a 1x1 brick or whatever between them to be able to have these lines. So that's how I came up with that design. The middle here was a little bit more complicated, but it ended up working out. This middle shape was actually mostly just influenced by how all these other shapes came together. And then I basically was just trying to fill in everything in here with white and get a mostly octagonal looking shape. Like I wasn't super concerned with getting it perfect, but I think it came out well for the context of the room. You'll also notice there's this white line that borders the edge of the room that looks pretty nice in my opinion. Like getting all of these shapes in here, you can see it's not straightforward at all. I had to do some super roundabout, complex snot work in the floor of this room to get this to come out well and preserve all of these lines. The fact that I was able to preserve these lines means so much to me for this room. Like this is exactly what I was going for. And if you compare it to the shot from the game, it looks pretty spot on. So I'm super happy with it. The only thing that can maybe make this better is if I were somehow able to have all this illuminated using like trans clear bricks or something, which was an option I slightly considered, but the lighting beneath this room, especially since it's all snot and not everything is actually held in by a stud, for example, like this little section right here, it just made more sense to me to do it white. It gives it, I don't know, it looks more white in the actual reference material. Like trans clear is not quite what those lines are supposed to be. So this works out on that level, and like I said, like running the wiring in here would be such a pain, and I wasn't exactly sure how I could accomplish that. But I love the way it came out. Our floor is done. I still need to put some snot bricks into here, basically rip up the middle of the circle, put some snot bricks to have some studs to work with so I can put the apparatus that Ray is like attached to here. I'm gonna have it basically, I think it has to be facing the door that way. Or maybe, actually, now that I think about it, I think when Kylo walks in, it's facing the opposite way. I don't know. We'll figure that out. It's not a huge deal, but the plan of this entire module is this room's going to sit right here. There's going to be a hall that basically goes from the front of the room to the from the front of the module to the back of the module, and you're gonna see like the walls of the hallway on either side over here. Nothing back there is going to be visible, so we don't really need to worry about that. But that's basically the plan for this module. So I feel like I've gotten the extremely difficult part out of the way with this floor. And I guess I'll just give you guys a quick, another look at the top of this, just so you can really appreciate all the complex shapes that had to come together to make this thing look accurate. Like, this has to be the most complex snot work I've ever had to try to incorporate into a build. But I love the way it came out. This is almost exactly what I envisioned for this room, and I was able to execute it pretty well, I think. So you can pause it here and just really take in all the various pieces I'm using to fill in gaps. Filling in gaps was the most important part here. Like I said, like this design would have been okay. You know, there weren't huge gaps, but there still were gaps. And I think this is the best way to really minimize the amount of gaps here. It looks pretty seamless, you know, for the most part. So I do appreciate that about this build. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to work on this hallway over here. Going to work on hopefully building these walls up in this room. I have some orders that I'm waiting on. They may or may not come in, so we'll have to see about that. That's why you'll see these walls are light gray rather than dark gray. But let's go ahead and work on this. Woo! Everything litty. I love when it's hot. This hallway is looking exceptional. The lights really do help finish this hallway. You'll notice in the background I've set up these two stormtroopers, and they're basically reenacting the scene where they come walking down this hallway, and one of them's like, hold up, Kylo Ren's in there having one of his temper tantrums. Let's take another hallway. I love this scene. This is one of the funnier parts in the movie, and the fact that I could recreate this in Lego and have it be pretty obvious. I think if you're looking at this, you can pretty quickly figure out what's going on here. That makes me very happy. That is a very big deal to me. Another thing you'll notice is these hallway designs. The walls in these hallways are just so awesome. I love the way these came out. Starting towards the back, you can see the glow of those red vents, and that was actually not the most straightforward thing to achieve. Initially, the light coming through them was way too bright. Like, you could see the reflection of the red just like blasting on the other side of the hallway, and that's not what I wanted. This isn't like a mostly red hallway. There's just a small little glow there. So what I ended up doing was an interesting technique out here, actually. I have, rather than this LED like pointing directly into the red, which is what I had initially, I have it pointing down, and then I have this white cheese slope here that basically makes it reflect back into this, but not at such a high intensity. White is the best color that you can use to reflect light, so that's why I chose these white cheese slopes here, and it gives me the exact effect that I want here. You know, it's a very obvious glow, like it's not a dim light at all, but it's still contained in that vent. It's not just diffusing all throughout the room, because that's not what I wanted. And it looks awesome. I love the glow of the red in there. That looks so cool to me, especially if you look at it from straight on. The hallway lights just really make this hallway take another level up. Another technique I used in this hallway were these doors right here. If you remember, I actually used this technique for the Starkiller base prison windows. This is that reverse arch technique to basically get a nice curve on the inside of these doors. If you haven't used that technique before, I definitely urge you to do so. It's a really useful technique, and you can get some pretty awesome shapes and designs that you really wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So I love the way that came out. These walls are basically symmetrical, so this door is the exact same on the other side. And then finally, there's just some more red lights kind of around there. And I capped it off with some nice wall details here. There was also some nice snot work on the ceiling of this thing, and it's actually accurate to the film. There are these circular spotlights, and then there are the line lights, and then it kind of alternates back and forth going down the hallway. And that's pretty similar to how it's supposed to look. It's not exact, and I think it looks pretty cool. It's nice having it alternate a bit up there. Just gives it a little bit of differentiation, and I like that. It looks nice. Towards the back of the hallway, there are some pipes hanging from the ceiling, which I think look pretty cool. It's just nice to have a little bit of variation in the ceiling as well. Like, I don't know, the ceiling details can get kind of monotonous just putting, you know, Technic bricks and running LEDs through them, but doing some different creative things I thought made this ceiling look a lot more interesting, and those pipes in the back certainly help. Another thing is this window towards the back. It's a pretty interestingly shaped window, and this is the closest I could get it to look to what it's actually supposed to look like. And I think it's fine. I like it because I was able to also use, once again, that reverse arch technique. I'm telling you guys, that reverse arch technique is where it's at. And this is basically supposed to be a window that's at the back of this hall. And if you'll actually look in the scene in the film, you can see the hangar. Like, it's supposed to look out into the hangar, and you'd see a giant wall of those Death Star light panels. Unfortunately, with the way I had this MOC set up, that window is not going to look into that hangar at all. So what I'm planning on doing is basically getting some more of those custom printed stickers of the Death Star light panels and just putting it behind here where my finger is. And what I actually want to do is shrink them down a bit so where, there's a bunch of them on one panel. So basically give you the illusion that you're looking out onto a big wall that would be far back into the MOC. I think that would actually look pretty nice. If you don't understand what I mean, just stay tuned in, and I'm sure it will make a lot more sense once we get to that part of the build. But overall, this hallway, man, I just love the way this thing came out. It's a very memorable scene, and the lights really just help cap this thing off. Like, seeing this to the camera really does not do it justice. The wall techniques here with the slanted design, having the troopers towards the back is just awesome. And this was actually set up pretty strategically because this door leads, of course, into the interrogation room. Oh, Kylo's taking a nap. What the heck, Kylo? Come on, man. Yes, the interrogation room. And this was the part that was basically causing such a delay in this video. I still didn't get as much done as I would have liked to. I would have loved to have capped this off with a ceiling, but I wanted to get this video out tonight, so that's why I just decided to put up the walls, put up the little apparatus that Rey's sitting on, and then of course have Kylo. He's trying to get the map to Luke Skywalker, so I think I have that pretty well represented here. You can see Rey is on this little, I think it's actually like a torture device now that I think about it. It's not a comfortable chair at all, and I try to make it look as much here. One of the things I'm not sure I'm sold on with this design are basically the restraints that she has around her arms. I wanted to have that represented because that's actually super important in the film, but I couldn't find a good way to have a minimalist design for this. I initially tried to incorporate these handcuff pieces in some way, but they're basically just bent in the wrong direction. Like if I click them on this way, then the other side sticks out, in the wrong direction. I tried to basically run it underneath her hand, but if you do that, her hand can't be down. It's almost at a 90-degree angle sticking up because these are so thick, and this can't fit between her arm and her torso. So I don't know if you guys have an idea of how I could represent those handcuffs a little bit in a more minimalistic way. I'd love to know what you guys would come up with, but this is the best thing that I came up with, and it's not terrible. I'm fine keeping this as is if it just ends up being that way. But I am open to hearing what you guys have to say to possibly improve that design. I'm actually, other than that, pretty happy with this design right here. I use tons of illegal techniques. Ignore those if they trigger you. But I think it came out pretty nicely. I don't know what I'm going to do in terms of displaying this MOC, but I would love to have a situation where maybe I get some photos of her not in this thing and have Kylo actually throwing his tantrum in this room. For no other reason than because I'd love to be able to show off this thing without Rey sitting on it so you could get a better look at the detail that I put into it. The walls in this room are the same as the walls in the Rey clone room that I did many, many months ago. That was almost a year ago. Oh my god, this MOC has taken so long. And I like the way it came out. It just looks good. It's a good looking wall design, and getting it to be this kind of circular design going all the way in this room was not easy to figure out. It basically had to conform to the floor design, and then the floor basically allowed for the walls to be in this specific position. And once I figured it out, it came out so well, I think that if you zoom out, if you take a look just at this room as a whole, the way the floor looks, the way the walls look, I love it all. It just all flows together so well. I feel like every time I work on this MOC, there's always a new challenge, and that's one of the best things about doing Starkiller. It's sometimes it can be a lot of the same old, but with this interior that I've been building, I feel like every week I get to try something new that I've never even built before, and this floor design was definitely that. It came out much better than I could have ever imagined, just getting this nice octagonal shape, the white lines around the room, these white lines that point in towards the middle, all that, love it. I can't wait to put a ceiling on this thing and be able to show it off with lights. I think it's really going to look nice. But I am happy I was able to get this far. There was a couple orders that I was waiting to get. And once I finally got them in, we were able to get this room set up. And that's going to finish up the video this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out Starkiller. As always, in the comment section below, let me know what you thought of it. I am just ecstatic with the way that this thing is coming out. This hallway and room module especially, I'm just using so many unique techniques, things that I've literally never done before. I love that about this MOC, all the new challenges. all the ways that this is improving me as a builder. It's such a fulfilling experience, and I hope that you guys are seeing that through the weeks as I'm being able to as I'm building more and more. Next week, I'm going to just finish off this section. Like, the hallway is done. I just need to add a ceiling to the interrogation room, and then we're going to basically move a level up above this. And my plan was to do some barracks, which I'll probably still do because that could actually be a lot of fun. But what I'm looking at with the height that I need for this module to be basically leveled with this one next to it, I might need to add another module. So basically it'll be 4 levels so you get the height to somewhat balance itself out. And I'm not really sure what to do with that. I've, at this point, done all the interior rooms that I want to do, at least for this section of the build. And I'm not really sure what else to add in the Starkiller. So I'd love to leave that to you guys. This 4th room that I could possibly do, what other thing would you like to see in Starkiller? One thing I will say is I'm still going to do the Han Solo room, but that's in another building, so don't suggest that. It's going to be in the MOC. It just doesn't belong here. The other thing I'm also going to do is the command center where Hux is talking to the people, and he asks them for reports on the laser, so don't recommend that either. I'd love to know what other thing you guys think I could add into this build. But that's going to finish it up for the week. If you guys like what I do, go ahead, support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again